Hello and welcome to the Cloverdale Children's Story Training video. In this short video, I'll go over a few guidelines to encourage you and to equip you to tell the best possible children's story. We're going to talk about choosing your story. Why do you want to tell this story? What is the key lesson from your story? And how much time do you have? And then, of course, how to keep the attention of the children. And the first and last words, choosing a story. What kind of story are you going to tell? Is this going to be a story that you read in the Bible? Is this going to be a personal story? Is it a story that you read somewhere? Or is this a story that you heard sometime? When you're telling a story, especially at church, people can always fact check you. They can Google real quick the things that you are saying to find out if it's true or not. Or if you're telling a story as if it was a true story and then turns out that it's not only do you lose credibility, people may not trust anything else that will happen in the service, not even the sermon. So it's always good to be clear. What is the source? Can you trust this information? It's always good to Google the information. Read from different sources. Make sure you have your facts straight. And then if it is a made-up story, which it can be fiction, but it teaches a special lesson, let the children know, hey, this is a fictional story. Just let's be clear. Is this real? Did it happen with you? Did you read it somewhere? If so, where did you read it? Is it reliable? These are good things to keep in mind. Next, why tell this story? Out of all the stories you could possibly share, what makes you choose this one? This will shape how you tell the story. This leads us to our next point. What is the key lesson? And this is directly linked to why you choose to tell this story. What is it that makes this story important? Think about that as you're preparing your children's story. Here at Cloverdale, we have 10 minutes for the children's story, and that begins when the kids start collecting the lamb's offering. So however long it takes them to collect the lamb's offering, you have to subtract that from your story time. You want to make sure that you're ready to go as soon as they're there, and as they're settling down, you can begin the story that will motivate them to sit down and to be quiet. If you have props, if you have different things, just be ready to go. I would practice a 5-minute story and then be willing to adjust, add more details, subtract details, find out what's the essence of your story. And this is where the magic happens, figuring out what are the essential details, what could be added if I have extra time, and what could I remove from the story. It's good to be flexible. That's why it's important to practice your story. And this is directly related to keeping their attention. Look at the kids that are coming forward. What's their age? You're going to have to adjust your story on the fly depending on your audience. That's why I would recommend you never read the story. But I'd say right now, read the story for yourself, make an outline of the key points, and then tell the story. Practice this at home. Tell the story. Go back and read the story. Did you miss something? Is there something that you got wrong? Go back and check. But when you tell the children's story, it's so important to make eye contact with the children. So please know the story. You don't have to memorize it. Just be familiar with the story. Then you can tell it freely and you can adjust according to the kids, according to their reaction. Are they tracking along? Are they paying attention? Or have they gotten distracted halfway through? Or did you lose them right at the beginning because you were talking about different things instead of getting straight to the story? This is important. When you first begin, this is your best chance to get and to maintain their attention. If you lose their attention early on, good luck getting it back. It's better to just start and catch their attention right from the beginning. Also, a few things you can do. If you notice that the kids are getting restless or distracted, you can whisper. If you whisper, get closer to them. They will start paying attention. Or you can do something loud, add some sound effects, clap your hands, stomp your foot, do something to get their attention, but make sure this goes with the story. You can add something to the story. Bam, he jumped and he looked. Even if that wasn't there originally, add that on there just to get their attention again and now keep going with the story. Also, something you can do is move around intentionally. If the main character in your story, whether it's a dog, a person, a child, is walking around, walk around. If they're sneaking around, sneak around. If they're stomping their feet, stomp your feet. If they're whisper. So make it intentional, but do something to get their attention. These are also good techniques to just use throughout the story as a great way of holding their attention. So you want to start in a way that grabs their attention and you want to keep their attention throughout the story, and you can adjust your volume and you can use movement, the movement of your hands, the movement of your body, and the way that you talk, stand up straight, crouch down. All of these things can help keep the attention of the children. Now, first and final words. Children can be very forgiving if you mess up in the middle of the story, but you definitely want to get the introduction of your story well and you want to do that intentionally. When you're at home practicing for your children's story, please practice how will you start the story. If it's a personal story, do you want to begin in the beginning of the story? Or do you want to begin at a part that's really exciting and leave them hanging? Oh no, what's going to happen next? And then you go back and tell the beginning of the story to how you got to that point and then take them to the conclusion of the story. You choose, play around, try different things. But it's very important that you catch their attention at the very beginning. Practice your very first words. Are you going to begin with a song? Are you going to begin with sound effects? Are you going to begin by whispering to them? Are you going to begin by shouting or jumping? What are you going to do? Do you have a prop? Do you have something that you will show them that will introduce the story? But please don't waste time. Get straight to the story. It's not the time to introduce yourself. It's not the time to say what the story will be about. No, start telling the story. If you want to do those other things, do that while they're collecting the lamb's offering. Do that while they're walking around and coming forward. But once you have their attention, get to the story right away and get going. Know what's going to be your transition and how do you want to end the story. This is the other key point. You need to know how to land the story. I've seen people go on and on. They could have finished and it was a good story, but they kept going and then it just kind of fizzled out at the end. And you don't want that to happen with your story. You want to have a clear lesson. What is the point? What do I want them to do differently as a result of this story? Think about those things and make sure you end with that. Practice it at home. Time yourself. Try to keep the story to 5 minutes or less, but you do want to keep it as short as possible. A short, memorable story will be great, as opposed to the only thing people remember about your story is that it went kind of long and you're not sure what the story was about. Be clear with the story. What is the lesson? And then make sure you also have a clear way of beginning the story. How are you going to introduce the story in a way that grabs their attention? That's it for this training. I hope you found it helpful. Thank you for your willingness to be a part of our worship service, and let's all strive together to offer our very best to God.